Shalom, WJC family. It is time for our weekly Torah Talk. And this week in Shul, we will be reading Parshat Yitro, which is most famous for the revelation at Mount Sinai of the Ten Commandments. That is chapter 20 of the book of Exodus. And look, it's important. These 10 commandments is maybe not the right way to call them. These aseret hadibrot, these 10 utterances that come to define sort of what it means to have a revealed law, sort of the basic categories rabbis will tell us later that are explicated in detail later on. We sort of get the headings here in the Aseret HaDibrot. And then later, as the law is given in much greater detail, we will be able to better understand what each of these categories means. But I think that I have always found the Aseret HaDibrot are wonderful and interesting and important. But the chapter before that, chapter 19 of the book of Exodus, known as the Shloshet Yemei Hagbala, the 3 days of separation, of making boundaries, is an even more interesting part, if you can say, more interesting, lesser, is an even more important, or has always interested me more than the Ten Commandments themselves. And the reason is because I think from this section we can understand why God is giving revealed law. Why does God want to be the giver of rules to this nation who are, the Israelites? These descendants of Abraham, these runaway slaves, enslaved people, what is it exactly? And the answer, I think, comes across pretty clearly. It's because God cares about us. God cares about people. God cares about humanity, and God cares about individual nations and even individual people. And so it comes out in these 3 days because Moses is, they're trying to negotiate the terms for this meeting of the people and God, and Moses goes up the mountain and down the mountain, and God appears to Moses on the mountain, and God says, listen, in 3 days I'm going to come, and the people need to be in a state of purity, and you have to put boundaries around the mountain. Anyone who touches the mountain while my presence is on the mountain, tell them they're going to be, you can't touch them because some kind of electric shock that would transfer through, but you got to shoot them with arrows or stone them or something. Anyone who touches the mountain, death penalty, immediate. And Moses was like, okay, we'll set up boundaries. Don't worry. He goes, he sets up boundaries. When Moses comes back at the end of these 3 days, and God's like, all right, let's have the revelation. Moses is excited. He set up his boundaries, and God says, make sure those boundaries are good, that nobody can touch the mountain. Because if they touch the mountain, they're going to die. Which is different from saying they'll get the death penalty. Ultimately, that rule of don't touch the mountain, or you're going to get it, was ultimately for the protection of the people who, it seems, if they touch the mountain, would actually be harmed. And so the image that's evoked here, this God constantly worrying about the people, not just where they're going to be, but what state they're going to be in. Will they be ready spiritually for this moment, and that they're going to be protected, that they won't touch the mountain, shows a caring God. And it makes sense, because that caring God is the whole reason that God revealed law to us in the first place. This whole episode, and the whole idea of God's revelation of law and rules to people, of morality and ethics to people, is problematic when it comes to philosophy. I happened to be, for a class, reading Emil Fackenheim's Encounters Between Judaism and Modern Philosophy. And in one particular essay, he's talking about Kant, and how Kant says revealed law can't be moral, that morality and ethics have to come from within a person, and fear of God or fear of punishment is not a good enough reason to motivate moral behavior. Kant's complicated, and there's no need to dig deeper into it than that. But because of that, Kant kind of dismisses revealed law. He, while theology and philosophy up until Kant had this idea that God reveals morals and ethics, and then we create our laws to follow them. Kant had the idea that we create our laws and follow them, and then attribute them to God. Enough there. Fackenheim comes along and he says, we don't, they're not necessarily in conflict. The idea that a law can be revealed and that there could be a revealer who we don't want to disappoint, and yet we can still have what philosophers call autonomy to make the right decisions ourselves. And so the way that Fackenheim explains it, I think, is just so beautiful. He says that for Kant, all morality, including religious morality, demands a two-term relationship between man and his human neighbor, right? Morality is how you treat other people. The revealed morality of Judaism demands a three-term relationship, right? Three partners. Nothing less than a relationship involving man, his human neighbor, and God himself, right? So God is entering into the moral conversation, not just as a giver of laws that you now have to follow or be punished, but in fact as a partner in bringing morality into the world. God has, as we would say, to make it terribly, terribly lessening God by making him anthropomorphic, making God anthropomorphic. God has skin in the game, right? And this is the relationship. God sounds like a parent to a child in chapter 19, in the Shloshet Yemei Hagbala. God sounds like a bridegroom or a bride coming to the chuppah. In fact, that's how Rashi makes that comparison, that God is like the bridegroom coming forth to meet Israel. But what happens under a chuppah? Under a chuppah, a three-way partnership is made between the couple and God, right? The couple can have a romantic relationship without a chuppah, without a wedding. But when they want to sanctify that relationship, when they want to make it holy, bring about the ideas of creation that are available within a romantic relationship, that's what happens under the chuppah. And that's what's happening at Sinai. Just like God cares about that couple and that family, when that family declares that they are dedicating themselves, their romantic relationship, to something greater than themselves, so too at Sinai, the Jews are dedicating themselves, the Israelites are dedicating themselves to something greater than themselves, and in doing so, God is entering into relationship, not only with the Israelites, but also with all of humanity, as the revelation spreads, contains plenty of wisdom, not only for the Jewish people, but for all people. All of this to say that God cares. God cares the way a parent cares for their child. God cares the way a groom cares for their partner, and so on and so forth. God is in the relationship, and that's what makes this chapter 19 so special. It's what makes the revelation so important. It's not only that we get Torah, which is great. It's that Torah ultimately, as Fackenheim describes it, becomes a bridge built of love and care to the divine. As we accept Torah in shul, symbolically by standing at the reading of Yitro, well, may we all find our feet on that bridge and our way into relationship with that which is greater than ourselves, a relationship based on love and based on care. Shabbat Shalom.